Welcome to How to Rock Spirit's Cosmic Consciousness audio series, a collection of spiritual, scientific, and psychedelic musings by Pluto's Corona, a Leo rising Scorpio with Sagittarius moon, born in the year of the metal ram. Pretty much all of these audio entertainments have been a collaborative effort between myself and my friend and producer Al Ginsberg. It is our belief that the truth and everything that can be known is already out there, and we're not here to explain it, we're here to explore it together. For more far-out discussions about spirit, alchemy, psychedelics, yoga, and cosmic intelligence, visit my YouTube channel, How to Rock Spirit, where you'll find a slowly growing database of all of Ram and Dog's psychedelic blogs and audio recordings. Take your time and enjoy the ride, folks, and we'll meet you on the other side. Namaste. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this year's lecture series. This lecture is entitled Intention and Action, the Why Lecture. The big question we're going to tackle is my own rendition of the classic question, why do philosophy? Why? Why live the examined life? Why act at all, and to what purpose? What's it all about? What's it all for? What's the meaning? What's the message of all this signal? As many of you may know, I'm a mystic. That's what I consider my philosophy as. And so my answer to the question of what's it all about, what's it all for, it's always going to be in the nature of, it depends on the nature of the person asking the question. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, this question kind of dates back to the hedonism of Epicurus and the Greeks with that ultimate happiness principle. What is the ultimate happiness? Can ultimate happiness be boiled down to a formula that works universally for everybody? The narrow gate, you know? Maybe. Maybe, you know, if there was such a formula, I would think it would have some algebra variables, you know, so that there's an X or Y value that can represent the complexities of the individual who's asking the question of what's it all about. So let's get back to our original question. Why do philosophy? Why act? And to what direction should our action go? For me, the answer to the question, why do philosophy, is all about how we use our actions and our energy. That's kind of what it boils down to. And to me, that comes down to a utilitarian pragmatism philosophy. It's sort of the long and short of it. And, you know, of course, pragmatism and efficiency are defined differently by everybody, by different people. What are we going to do with the power we all have at the ends of our fingertips? Who is our power for? Ourselves as individuals, the collective, or a bit of both, you know, some way between. How do we define the most efficient use of each individual's energy in the grand scheme of things? That's a pretty old question, too, and it works in a funny sort of way on both levels. That's why I love the symbol of the yin and the yang, because there's a little bit of white in the black, and there's a little bit of black in the white, the Tao symbol. What I mean is that, you know, the question of is it up to do we put our energy towards the collective? Is that the best place to orient our energy? And to realize purity or some kind of harmony? Or should we be putting all of our eggs in the self basket, you know? There's many philosophies, kind of including the Western esoteric tradition, that mainly focuses on the realization of the self within, and in integrating one's own personal sphere, because if everybody changes themselves from within, then the changes we seek in this world will be generated in a grassroots sort of way. But ultimately, that's a duality, and I'd like to say that the answer is both, and that's what I meant by having the yin and the yang, having a little bit of each in the other. Yogananda relates a story that relates very much to this theme. It's a story of Krishna, baby Krishna, which represents bliss, by the way. That's how I've chosen to interpolate this story. Baby Krishna is on one part of India, and its devotees come along. This is all a metaphor, remember. Krishna's devotees come along, and they see that Krishna is hungry. Bliss is hungry, so to say, lacking. And the devotees know that master, that bliss principle, we can almost call it Christ consciousness. We could, of course. Anyway, baby Krishna is crying because it's hungry, and the devotees of Krishna, they say, okay, we need to get master some cheese. And they know that the only place to get cheese is across the river, Jamuna. The river Jamuna is this big river, and the river bearer, the one who will get them across the river on a raft, he's got a raft kind of like in that book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and he offers to bring them over, and they know that the man is a disciple of Krishna. He's a wise sage. And so they say to him, can you get us across the river, because the master needs some cheese? And the sage says, yes, very well. I will bring you across the river, but I will need to eat a lot of that cheese that you guys get. Whatever you get for Master Krishna, I'm going to have to take a bunch of it. And they know that he's a wise sage. They know that he is a sagacious, a wise man. He's almost a guru himself, this man who brings people across the river. And so they say, how can he dare to say that? How can he possibly, eat before the master, before Master Krishna? And so they're confused, and so he takes them across the river. They get the cheese, and then they come back to him again. And then he says, okay, so throw me some of that cheese, and I'll let you guys cross the river. And so they give him the cheese, and he eats a bunch of it. He eats a whole bunch of this cheese. The devotees say, how can you eat the cheese before the master? And the sage goes to the river Jamuna and says, "Oh, river Jamuna, if I have not eaten any cheese, open up and part." And the river parted. And the devotees were completely confused by this. They said, this guy eats the cheese right in front of us and then goes to the river Jamuna and says, "River Jamuna, if I have not eaten any cheese, then open up." And the Jamuna obeyed. So they were confused. They didn't get it. So then they go back to Krishna with the cheese that they procured. And they ask baby Krishna, Master, we've got your cheese for you. And the master's full. He's a little baby bliss thing, bliss alien. He's sitting there, and his belly seemed to be filled. And they're saying, "Master, here's your cheese." And he says, "No, I'm good. I'm all right." And they say, "Aren't you interested in cheese today? We went to get it for you." And Krishna says, No. That man on the other side of the river, he fed me too much. Because, of course, the man on the other side of the river, when he ate the cheese, he was only giving it to Krishna. Because that man's bliss is a part of the great bliss. And they're both important, you know. That was a story that Paramahansa Yogananda related pretty often, and it's a very, it's a Krishna philosophy story, you know. And it says a lot about this question of what is the ultimate happiness principle? What's the ultimate philosophy? In any case, to me, let's get back to the question of what must be done with our human energy, and why. This whole debate, by the way, between objective needs, universal objectives, and individual needs for holistic wellness, those two, that duality of frameworks, is something I'm going to talk about later in some of my lectures at some point. But for now, we are focusing on the self within. To me, the answer to what must be done with our human energy, of course, depends on the person asking the question. Because, as I said, the pathway to bliss is different for every creature. It is true that there are collective objectives which we all strive for as a planetary transpersonal organism, as a unified consciousness. But those universal objectives must coincide with the development of psychological and holistic wellness within the energy sphere of every individual which seeks to contribute to that greater collective goodness. Every limb of the tree has to be able to hold its own weight and collect the energy from the sun and give back more than it receives, right? Back to the main stem of the tree. Or else that limb will fall off, and then that's the whole tree falling apart. The nature of each piece ought to be discovered by itself, a process referred to variably as gnosis, self-awareness, or soul realization. Each creature seeks self-awareness of the little self, the ego, I, me, and a body, in order that each can understand how they, with their nature, can most effectively relate to the motions of the collective. The big I. I like to refer to astrology, analytical psychology, counseling, Dianetics, and yoga, art, as well as art, especially, and as well as other methods ranging from the psychological to the neurological, as various keys to this wisdom of self-discovery. They're methods of awareness aimed towards sketching and skewing one's own genetic nature and temperament. These self-analysis tools and yogas provide an essential exoskeleton, a backer board, for clarifying how someone might use their energy and nature, their own nature, their own powers that they have, their mental powers, physical, everything, and how they might use that nature to best effect. As a philosopher, I guess I should say I like to give a bit of background information about myself before really heading off into one of my own little tangents. If only for the simple reason that a little background check is useful in helping my audience to objectify the consciousness which is making these philosophical statements. And I personally think that this is crucial when considering the philosophy espoused by any talking head like me. That's why, I'm such an astrology guy, because I like to really get a sense of where the person's coming from when I hear about their philosophy. Whether astrology is valid, whether the stars really affect our personalities, It's not so important to consider here for the sole fact that these ideas, these astral ideas and archetypes, are my preferred method for identifying myself. See, real astrologers don't look for their personality in the stars. It's the other way around. Real astrologers look to find whether they can see the stars reflect their personality, as sort of an archetypal guidepost. So the case simply remains that through my own decades of soul searching, I've discovered these linguistic keys or totems that I personally feel do a good job painting a picture of my own personality. And that's why I like to use astrology metaphors. I'm a Leo rising, Scorpio sun, Sagittarius moon, Sun conjunct Mars and Pluto in Scorpio in my 4th house. I'm born in the year of the metal ram under the daymaster sign of the water horse. Blah, blah, blah. What's it all mean, right? Well, the year of the ram and Scorpio are both said to be water element types. Ram is in the water triad of Taoist astrology. How I'll explain what that means to me in brief is that water types like me, as I understand it, the idea of the cosmic elements is that all 4 of them come to make up the different varieties of consciousness. Earth and water both fall by gravity to the ground, which is material. Earth types and water types are both interested in material, in what's been given. Not to say that we're materialistic. I mean, we can be, but it's not always for a purely materialistic, selfish purpose. Materialism can make things easier for everybody if it's done properly or whatever. And material and spirit are 2 sides of the same coin of philosophy. Where earth types tend to have their consciousness focused on making things simplified, ergonomic, economic, and easy in the material sphere. Water types and their philosophical expositions, like I'm doing here, tend to be more centered on the self, by which I mean, quite strictly speaking, genetics, psyche, and the soul. Not some metaphysical hogwash, but how one's psyche practically relates with its environment. So my sphere of focus as a conversationalist and a philosopher tends to be centered on how I can use what I am to best affect for the community and for everything else around me. And that's what I'm looking to express and hopefully to teach, or at least expand on usefully on these ideas. And of course, when I say I mean you as well. Mind you, no one can tell you about who you are except yourself, but we can talk about what we are in order to get a greater sense of how the me can better relate with the we. So I think that this big philosophical why question that I'm laying out in tonight's discussion is it's bound to reflect the nature of Scorpio in the year of the ram, as that kind of watery, going with the tides kind of philosophy, that self-reflection of the nature and rhythm of one's own tides. So the nature of the big question I'm asking tonight is, in a nutshell, why are you doing the things you do in your life? What is the purpose of this perpetual habit of yours of, not dying? What keeps you going on? Do you remember? Is it just a fear of death? What started it all? Have you meditated long and hard on what kind of, keeps you going? Have you ever tried to find the source of your deepest motivations and inspirations? Do you live for any real deep meaning, or is it, is it for something simple like being able to lean on the couch by the end of the day and eat some pizza? Can you trace an answer, or does it lie somewhere mysteriously on the inside of all the outer answers? Something unquestioned, something mysterious. Think of your body like a ship. The boards of the flooring and the mainstead of your ship have all changed through the years, and the nails have rusted off into new bone sinews. Your face and place and lace have all changed, and all your skin cells have been washed off and renewed. But aren't you still the same old starship that you were when the universe first assembled you as a baby? The same old DNA script? Aren't your parents just the same? Grown up in the same sort of predicament? How much of your parents' unconscious script has rubbed off onto yours? Have you ever considered how much your parents were repressed by their parents, by your grandparents' script? I mean, who's running the show down the line, right? How much does fear and psychic tension control our lives? Where's there room in this uncomfortable cosmic schema for you to set free the raw, uninhibited laughing baby that you once were when you were born, before you donned the social shell which you get around in? Is there no real living spirit for you in this life? Can one escape the tides of this automatic monster which we incarnate into? And can someone find some real bliss, some real edgy, gritty purpose, some kind of edge here in the Matrix, some way between your coming and going, in the dark hallways of this feral animal script we call modern life? My Scorpio sign is ruled by Mars. Mars is the red planet, the conqueror. I relate this to myself in that the direction of my energy towards some kind of conquest occupies a large part of my thinking. And of course, I should say that this Mars directiveness of mine it's not the only important dimension of life. It just happens to be the one that my focal point is focused on. And I guess I think of it as, it's the water thing. It's very much a metaphor for the body using its tides to press against the shoals of sand and to move material with its will. Anyway, this is me trying to say that, what's it all about depends on the person asking the question. If you're going to ask me, Mr. Scorpio Ram, my answer, like this whole lecture could be seen to be a picture of Mars, that Roman god of conquering, expanding upon the expression of our subconscious desires. That's kind of my thing, I guess. I think that our desires are important. What do you intend to conquer, to attain, to strive for in your life? Everyone has Mars and Scorpio dimensions in them somewhere. The desire to win is a natural, to succeed, to aspire like a spiral. I think it's a natural component inherent in the human psyche. We are all connected to a long-standing secret circuitry of genetic libidinal data, and possibly, some mixed up complexes and delusions of psyche stemming from the past, which often act like weeds and choke out the spirit of the present moment. It's memory blinding us from true bliss. I'm always thinking, if I as a Scorpio, or if I am going to release my energy now, How can I ensure that it's going to touch me with bliss at the other end of time? That it's going to be worth the seed that I sowed. Scorpio feels like she's already dead after all. Time for me is just a sleeve between two moments of rapture that are already touching in the fourth dimension. So that's why I'm so conservative with how I use my everyday energy, I'm a yoga guy. I try not to eat too much bull crap. I'm always trying to make sure that there are no leaks sapping the carriage of the blissful cup to its destination. Anyway, enough about me, said the Leo. Yeah, here's an interesting question. What should come first? Laughter and enjoyment, or hard work? As usual, the answer for me comes from one's nature, one's natural inclination. If you are one who is comfortable being a workaholic and is too tense from not relaxing enough, maybe you're making a lot of money and you're kicking butt, but if that's your nature, I'd say you'd grow a lot if you would drop the ball for once and go out and dance your pants off, smoke a joint, take a load off, doctor's orders. But if you are one who laughs first and works hard second, well, don't forget to go to work, It's the pressure makes diamonds, you know what I mean? Diamonds are hard, tough, they last for a long time. Anyway, that's what Crowley's essay, the Tien Tao, was all about. It's the growth of the individual comes from facing that which they are not, or which they inherently lack. Every positive attribute must imply an opposite, after all. If you focus on one field as your expertise, that means you're bound to be sapping energy away from possible excursions in another field of study or whatever. That's analytical psychology in a nutshell. Whether you're this one or that one, To me, many of the affairs of humanity are pointless on the face of it. It's just my idea, It's pointless not just for each person lacking bliss, but also as a whole, collectively. There's little to no total gnosis, no center of moral or philosophical gravity. We're all either destroying ourselves or destroying the planet because we all have an unconscious compulsion to act, to do some kind of action. I got to do something. But we got no solid or clear constructive pull to logically direct that energy towards. I think it's because, as Israel Regardie might have stated, mankind on planet Earth is still in the process of making the unconscious conscious, the individual person's unconscious conscious. Timothy Leary's work is a great answer to this riddle. In his various works, he defines a way of making everyone's subjective experiences and lessons and nature mutually coherent and almost even organized, so that one person's personal path of action can intelligently adapt and harmonize with the nature of others. And that's bringing us towards a collective planetary purpose of the great bliss, without dulling the edge of the personal spiritual journey. We'll talk more about Tim next year in the year of the fire rooster. How can we extricate our energy and nature from the grasp of profound pointlessness? Upon what grain or ground of truth do we stand, before directing the forces of nature residing in us? How can I know for sure at any moment that I'm not leaking or revolving my stale karma energy, but instead taking the seed of what's been the nigredo and solving it and evolving from it inwardly, blending it into an alchemical fusion with my environment for best effect, down the road? There's only so much time and energy to play with, at least for this incarnation. The universe hath given me energy to emblisten with, to return twofold, to pay interest on the debt. I have been loaned land wherewith the gods seek to increase their yield through my creative acts. How can I be sure that my word is the holy word in keeping with the Father, to put it Christically or mystically? Namely, how can I be sure my action produces the greatest yield of fruit for me and for, also for my friends and relatives and stuff, but from coming through me? The kingdom of heaven. There's only so much time. Every action, every breath counts. Mundane earthly life is the stage upon which the divine pageantry is played. Am I connected to that in my total beingness? Do I live sacredly enough to embody and a respect for that grace? I don't want to sound too Bible thumperish. I guess that's just how I think. But how much of my being, my job, my occupation, my identity, my property, my memory, the genetic and idealistic sediment of my parents, how much of all this is based on nothing but silly, accidental arbitration? How much of it is unexamined, whimsical, groundless, and lacking any real coherent order? Why do you do what you do? What do you wake up to in the morning? How long has it been the same, and why? This can be hard to meditate on because, people are typically more inclined to look outwardly or empirically at how their energy is doing, seeing whether it's gone up or down, or, instead of looking within at, focusing on where that energy is coming from and what it is pointed at. Where it's coming from doesn't matter, they say. What matters is what it does. And usually, what it looks like. And usually what matters to most folks is the morality and acceptance of where their slot is by social reckoning. Everyone seems to be smiling at me in my comfortable little niche. The TV says that I'm eating the best brand of breakfast cereal. I'm driving the Toyota on the commercial that everyone loves. What could possibly go wrong? Well, maybe there are places to put your energy to better effect that you don't see because you've only selected a certain palette of colors to paint your reality with. Everyone sees the world through their own particular reality tunnel, as, that's how Robert Anton Wilson put it, who's a fellow metal ram like me, by the way. Each reality tunnel is only a limited framework, like a color by numbers picture. You have to plug in every color to see the total picture, and sometimes that involves looking through new reality tunnels, a new angle, and each one of us has a different one. There is a central universal reality of sensory data, which is singularly contained by all the possible reality tunnels that we project. It's kind of like, there are objects, we just perceive them subjectively. The only way to perceive such a transcendental center contained by all perceptions is to have no ties to any particular lens. It's neurological tantra, to be willing to stretch into any of the other lenses and reality tunnels when the opportunity arises. By which I mean, by fusing with other people, getting to know them, see how they see the world. people don't seem to realize often enough that the reality tunnel, which they've painted across their identity and self-defined limits, is always predicated upon the experiences they've had, and the nature of the mind filter, which organizes the information of their lives according to its own tune. To say that what lies in a person's past is not important is to ignore the crucial key to expanding what one can do with their energy and action in the present. How can you know where you could be going without considering where you've been, what you've become, what karmic items are in your backpack, what dimensions you are blinded to with the one-dimensional perception which we all have? As I like to say, the direction that the snake's mouth is headed in depends on where its body has been. Memory comes out in definite limiting forms. It is the painful awareness and transcendence of our incompatible memories and their oblique neurological and psychological complexes that purifies our nature, cleans up the aisleways of our actions, and brings us closer to God, or, the pragmatic spinning of our chakric karma wheels of psychological volition. Terence McKenna has a famous quote related to this, which basically says that when you get into psychedelics and transcendentalism, you have to leave your previous models behind before you can expect to make a quantum leap in your thinking, or else your old models will only keep you stuck in the box. It is said that only the pure in thought, word, and deed shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. But what's a pure deed without the black matter to be transcended? In order for there to be purity, there must be something to contradict that purity, something impure by comparison in the nature. And that negative pole, to me, represents any limiting or unconscious way of being and thinking. Neurosis, temptation, the stale robot programming out of which Prometheus's fire seeks to ascend, out of which we seek to transcend as spiritual intellectuals. In my opinion, purity requires self-awareness, self-knowledge, gnosis, definition, a channel. It requires a bridging and an economic expressing of one's genetic nature in harmony with one's environment, with what society can take and with what society will resist. Why is the favorite phrase of all philosophers. Why do you do the things you do? How much of your waking life is a program? Why? Is the program useful to you? Is it useful to someone else? There are useful programs. Do you feel that you free up your mind by setting up these grooves, these boxes, in which you can wander and daydream your life away instead of, having to focus, working hard and living in it? Are the grooves easier than living on the edge of the unknown? Is it easier having a hallway to lead you around? What if the hallway is leading you to a slaughterhouse, like as if you're a feeble-minded sheep? That's okay, right? Because you're enjoying the ride. You're living in the present moment, right? Having a good time. You claim to be secure in your direction because your parents had it solidly secured before you even got a chance to touch the soft clay that forms your basic existence. Is that it? You and your parents have always felt easier about not questioning where the hallways are. Maybe you and your parents have always felt easier about not questioning where the hallways are taking you, because you wouldn't be going anywhere if you were to question the direction, right? At least we're going somewhere. Even if your folks are smart folks, have you ever considered that maybe you could be a new breed of smart? A seed towards a better reality than what they could possibly have figured before? What if your parents' reality has become obsolete and limiting in a new unfolding era? Do you think Einstein would have gotten to where he was by assuming that his parents' conservative plans for him were an accurate picture of what he was actually capable of? How else could one flower except by sprouting upwards towards the open air of the surface, far away from the soil out of which they sprang? Is it easier to listen to the tabloids, the newspapers, than to listen to your own inner promptings? Is the loud, frightening machinery of your insides just kind of too much to worry about? Why? I mean, have you ever tried being with the chaos of not knowing what's going on in there? It can be, ironically, it can be quite clarifying. So this is what it's like not to know. How simple. Now, because I don't know where to go, I can start seeking and questioning. Wonder tends to breed intelligence far more than belief does. It's a Zen beginner's mind, you know? It's not so bad resting in the darkness. It's better than running frantically through the labyrinth, hoping to find some light. And even if you do get some light for a while, when it is lost again, you are frightened even worse, because you had just gotten used to some illusion of clarity, some sense of sense, some reality tunnel that seemed for a moment to be solid. Then when reality shows a new face, the emotional attachments are as strong as ever because you had been clinging to that light. And now you must frantically search for another one, more clarity. Oh no, I've lost it. I thought I had it. It is better to get used to the darkness of not knowing and let the light come in when it may. Use knowledge when it comes, when it seems useful, but don't be used by it. The only thing worse than not having a direction is having a bad direction. That's why Zen beginner's mind is so important. If you're looking for something to do in a new city, are you just going to take the word of the first yokel you ask directions from? Or are you going to actually ask around a bit and get some other opinions first? Even if that yokel was right the first time, it doesn't hurt to, get another perspective. All the world's religions are pointed in the same direction, within, at a realization of the same eternal cosmic center of electric beauty that's been hidden within us all, timelessly. The bliss nature, which is our inner, it's our inner ability to enact the best possible outcome of spirit through our minds in the material world. All you have to consider is which is the best route to that state of enlightened living. And there's always, we get closer and closer to what we feel to be bliss, to be a harmonious relationship between the individual and its environment. But ultimately, there's always more mountain to climb. Thank God the peak of the holy mountain is omnipresent, or else we'd have nothing to do. It keeps going, man. It's like if you tried to expand something exponentially and making it more and more exponential. It's like something to the power of infinity. It wouldn't just go up on the graph. It would turn into a spiral, right? Why do you do what you do? Why are you living in the place you do with the people you are with? Is it love or is it dependence? How much of the love in your life involves the cold machinery of apparent necessity? Are you with your parents? Why? Are you alone? Are you with a lover you've grown used to? Why? Do the people in your life really enrich your experience? Or did you just grab a hold of the first moving object you could find and grasp onto it? Like a newly born goose who is searching for its mother. Apparently giraffes and geese are like this. Tim Leary talked about a psychologist whose Jeep was in the vicinity of a giraffe's birth. And the giraffe, the first thing the giraffe imprinted into its mind was the image of the Jeep as its mother. And the giraffe started following the Jeep around. It just would go wherever the Jeep went. That giraffe must have looked pretty ridiculous. It makes you wonder how ridiculous we must look in the eyes of an enlightened sage, or an extraterrestrial consciousness looking down. You know, since we depend on the first thing that we perceive rings with sensational delight to us, and we stick to that like a despondent orphan. This reminds me of something out of the Gita, actually. I've kind of interpolated my own sort of version of what I'm getting at here, but the idea is, it's the old thing with the necklace in the Gita. I think it's from like chapter 6 or 7 or maybe 8. I love the Gita. I always talk about it. It says, or the idea of it is that family, friends, and responsibilities, they are merely beads on a golden thread. You must realize that the golden thread is thy true essence. It is the golden thread within is engendered, spontaneously. It's automatically there. It's nature. The golden thread within is engendered when the beads and all the objects of the mind disappear. When the wearer of the necklace realizes that the thread, the eternal self, the true divine nature within, is made of gold, he cares not for what he uses as beads. Someone may even find beads that fit the tone and color of their soul's, golden thread better than those he knew before. A person would never know which beads fit him best until he wears them and experiences them. Like, whatever family you're in, you could always go out and do what you got to do and make another one. You can generate that kind of love anywhere. Friends, a job, whatever you do to keep yourself alive, these are beads on the necklace. And you won't know which beads fit your soul best until you try on a few and experience them. But most people, they don't ask about the beads they've been given, or they don't ask about what else is out there or what they can do, They just go with the giraffe they see as soon as they're born, right? Or the object they see as soon as they're born. When you get into transcendentalist philosophy and you begin to question everything, you start to generate an annoying voice in your head that it sounds just like Dee Dee from Dexter's Lab. Do you remember that show? In Dexter's Laboratory. It's a stupid old show. Dexter, I liked it. It was cool. Dexter was this mad genius child who had a secret underground laboratory that his parents were unaware of, where he conducted all these brilliant scientific experiments and worked towards the expansion of his own personal power, making big, cool robot-like stuff, Dexter, the boy genius, had a sister named Dee Dee, and Dee Dee was the other side of the coin of philosophy. Anyway, yeah, Dexter couldn't get a handle on Dee Dee, and she drove him bonkers in some pretty amusing ways. Dexter would say, "Dee Dee, how did you get into my room? I need to be alone so I can conduct my experiments." I can't do it, but whatever. And Dee Dee would say, "Why? Why? Because they're very important. Why? Because I'm a genius and I cannot waste my genius even for a moment. Why? Why? Dexter has all this brilliant ability, but he tends to rush too intellectually and headstrong into his activities at home and at school. He never asks for help or for other perspectives. Yeah, he knows he's a genius, He thinks he can, and maybe he can, sort of fix everything. And yet he can never bridge his genius effectively to alter his basic personality and living circumstances in reality, like his shyness around girls or the fact that he's a kiss-ass to his mother. And all his brilliance and power come from his singular perspective. He never questions why he does what he does, because that gets in the way of the doing, making his robots and stuff. That's why Dexter gets so pissed when Dee Dee comes along and splits him up into an infinite digression of whys. And yet Dexter is never satisfied with what he gets. No matter what his genius can get him through in physical reality, his genius cannot get around the shadowy walls of his ego and his limited inner illumination of his self-nature, you know? He can do a lot, but he just doesn't know what to do with it, I guess. He may be good at fixing problems that are obvious or that can be rationalized through his intellect and through logic. But what about the things that he can't get a perception on, like, himself? The conscience works like a searchlight, not like a floodlight. It zaps focus on one particular spot, but it cannot illuminate the space all around it. Or, just someone who's strictly logical has trouble perceiving the helical, the full philosophical side of things. He can rationalize and figure it all out, but how do you generate, or what do you generate with that kind of ability, And that brings on the philosophy of what it is to be man. It makes a whole different thing. If Dexter can just do everything with his robots, what else is there to do to make him some kind of meaningful purpose in life? This focused intellectual light of Dexter's can be very powerful as a method of illumination. It's like the knowledge as opposed to wisdom, It's one of the two sides of the coin of philosophy. Knowledge. Many people would think, well, come on, we have to have some kind of answer to life. So let's just answer within our illusion, within our unknowingness, the unknown. That way, at least we have some semblance of sense in our actions, even if we don't understand the fullest implications or the root of it, One flawed reality tunnel is better than no reality tunnel, right? If science can justify it, then let's just go with that. Well, maybe we better think about that. It seems people would rather prefer a slightly maladjusted viewpoint than to face the responsibility of true perception, because it seems easier and more convenient, more palatable to not have to think about where it's all really at. It takes mental energy and precision, it takes meditation, it takes concentration. Well, that seems like a hassle, but in the end, is the unexamined life really easier? Everyone thinks, instead of heading right for the ground of Gnostic truth, wisdom, self-awareness, how my experience relates to my nature, how I might relate most effectively to the dream in which I'm living, my environment, fuck it, I can just noodle around the lip, living a lower standard quality of life. I could think about what it all means, but I gotta get up to work tomorrow. And if I gotta get up to work tomorrow, I gotta have a glass of scotch before I go to bed, It seems people, they go for immediate, direct sensations of pleasure. They let the fear-mongering mob consciousness move resources around all about them, while they splay themselves helplessly in the current. Because I have to have some kind of action, don't I? I don't want to just question it all and then not be a part of it. It seems that out of some inborn insecurity and desire to please false idols on the pantheon of sensationalism and even fear, we seem to ignore the invisible cornerstone of self and build around the empty space we feel there. The fact is that no matter how much the soul wants to express the fullness of its vitality and energy, and to reach for a lunar feeling of its completeness, a moon, an emotional, a felt feeling of its completeness, the soul is held down under the thumb of Saturn, the rule of finite dimensions, material, mammal, biological survival, and upkeep in time, space-time. We can be as transcendental as we want to be, quote unquote, but when we go up to a Himalayan mountain expecting to find spiritual salvation, whatever that means, We're always presented with the daunting realization that our material bodies contain the germ of spirit and vice versa, and that we need food, water, breath, biological vitality cycles, and we need to recycle sexual energy, and we need love in order to survive well, in order to thrive. Once we've had the vision, once we go out on the spiritual trip, we have the vision on the top of the mountain, then we can head back to the market and conduct mundane business with that satori flash of illumination which our retreat was aimed at attaining. The material and the spiritual are really, they're one behind the scenes after all. Material reflects spirit. So, as I said, people in this world tend to have a habit of ignoring the invisible cornerstone of real self-knowledge and purposefulness, and they build around that lacking foundation. People see this great illusion of Maya in life, the material, mama, which they have been born into, and the first thing they think, consciously or unconsciously, is, I don't understand it. Yet, Saturn compels them to some sort of action or another anyway. Even as the Bhagavad Gita says, man cannot refrain from action, for man is compelled to act by nature. Even the refusal to act is still an action. It's like blocking a stream with one's hand. The dam effect does not stop the motion and force of the flowing water that's behind it. So some people either just plunge completely into action, into worldliness, and they say, forget this transcendentalism shit. What I need is sustenance, reality. I need to sustain my body. I know it. I can feel it. I'm hungry. While some people declare, sort of the nihilistic, existentialist nihilism extreme, which is, why act at all? Why do anything when what's the point? There's always a balance to be struck there between biological upkeep and spiritual wellness. And of course, they are connected at the root. You can't separate your spiritual life from your physical life and your mundane occupations, because then you will make an abstraction of them in the mind, and you'll reduce your intuitive ability to express yourself as the cogent synthesis of material body and spiritual soul that you truly are. That is true yoga when you think about it. I believe the whole point of my whole rap here is to express the Gnostic approach to soul development as I understand it. You have to question your actions and motives to the deepest and fullest profundity, yes. But don't quit your day job over it right away, that's kind of my point. Although some people should. Think it over. Get some help. Get a guidance counselor, smoke some pot, and listen to some lectures by some illuminating thinkers. Listen to new music, find novel sensations and experiences. Expand your neurological palette. Talk with friends and family about your situation. Meditate. Try looking away from the advice of those people who have helped inform the habitual framework of your life thus far. It's a bit of advice from my Sagittarius moon. Try other minds, other people, other angles of perception. Get out of your easy little box, whatever it is, even if you're a rich, socially respected capitalist type who is still as yet unsatisfied deep within. It happens. Read far and wide. Follow your bliss. Do what you love, and then try to see if that is the only thing you can love, the only way that you can love. Question it all. Question the basic fabric of your total beingness. Question morality and purpose, not only your own, but also as philosophical concepts themselves. Question questioning. Question nature and the human mind, language and its limits. Question how our reality is fitted into linguistic metaprograms, or, walls. Question how real your reality is. Consider that there might be more to it than your limited frame of reference can assimilate. Question it all. But, brush your teeth in the morning. Don't forget how to use the coffee maker. Don't forget to take your keys out of the vehicle before you lock it. Don't forget how to survive. The Gnostic approach to this classical philosophical stalemate, to question or to act, is to act while questioning, and question while acting. Laugh while working, Be awake, to borrow an abused New Age metaphor. Gnosis is not necessarily synonymous with knowledge, for knowledge is a knowing, whereas gnosis is an ingrained experience of wisdom, a neuropath, a beingness. So let Dee Dee ask you why you are doing the things you do. Don't just drink her away, no matter how annoying she gets. Maybe your own questioning mind is only annoying to you, or seems to be, or whatever, because you have grown so used to feeling a false sense of rightness. You've become comfortable in an illusion. Maybe it's easier for you to not think about things, at least for now, but you will regret that attitude when catastrophe strikes. And catastrophe will always strike the unexamined life. Catastrophe may even strike the examined philosopher's life too, Just because you're a philosopher and and you've got a philosophical wide range of thinking doesn't mean you shouldn't flinch when life goes to kick you in the balls. The difference between the philosopher and the regular person, however, is that the philosopher's crisis is also his opportunity for a fresh start toward realizing a new reality tunnel, a new neural path, and adding a fresh color to his color by number landscape of existence. The more lenses we allow ourselves to view the world through, the more clearly we can deduce the truth in reality and better deal with our own energy. This sort of life lived on the edge of chaos usually requires an inner assurance and faith in the greater cosmic design of things. It requires a strong integration of what is called the buddhi, or, to translate, the quote-unquote awake mind, or aware, and not merely painting reality by what we mentally project or wish reality to be, to go by what it really is, despite what our parents and teachers and politicians may tell us, or even what we ourselves may tell ourselves. This is, by this certain definition, lucidity and clarity. Some might call it rational reason. This courageous mindset can help a person to transmute their locked energy patterns and circuits which have been unwittingly programmed and hardwired into them, and can help us each to envision a clear-cut vein for a great freeing of our libido's expression from neurotic energy habits. I mean libido in that sense, as in the true will, the true libidinal expression of the heart. A lot of people relate it with sexuality and neuroses, but the libido is only neurotic when it is expressed unconsciously or against one's own will, and explosively. When the libido is awakened to through self-realization and experience of what engenders the heart, the release of pent-up energy, libidinal energy, is actually critical to our psychological health. Our inner desire nature and impulses should not be repressed, but balanced rationally within what's available in our environment, and what is constructive, what is harmonious, and what is in harmony with others. Attachment to sensation and fear, or pleasure and aversion, these are like leaks in the aura or the magnetic field. Only when the true will, the true heart desire, combined with rational reason, it's sort of like the intuition. We intuitively combine these two, and that's what our third eye is. Once the third eye is in the mind's eye, and all the lesser insecurities, the emotional grasping, all the other beads that we think is the gold on the necklace, even though the necklace is golden within. All these insubordinate things, once they've all been cleaved off, in faith and loving support of a more sacred integrity principle, only then will one's whole body become full of light. As Jesus said, when thine eye be single, thy whole being shall be full of light. That's the point I'm trying to get across there. The true will within, the heart manifestly, intuitively balanced with whatever's going on outside in the material reality. That's the true will. And when that bliss principle is the only thing in the mind's eye, that is when the light of the third eye is truly open and pouring into your life. I got this exercise from Robert Anton Wilson, and I think it's a universally useful one. The next time you go to meditate, try this. Begin to question everything that you're doing, right down to every fiber of oxygen you breathe into your lungs, right down to every cell in your fingers. See how deeply you can comb through the dimensions of your life, which have been unwittingly programmed into you over time's mercurial tides, by your environment and by your involuntary decisions, by your parents. It helps to mark many of these down into a notebook during this exercise, at least all the most important ones. Why am I here? I'm meditating. Why am I meditating? I'm trying out this exercise. Why am I trying out this exercise? Well, I'm curious about what I might uncover about myself and my purpose for living. Now we're getting into the meat of the thing. All these questions. Why do I go to work every day? Because I need to eat. Why? Because I'm a biological machine requiring material sustenance. Why do I choose to live in this house? Because I live close to my job. Why did I take this job? Because it's close to my house? Whoa, what came first there, the chicken or the egg? The desire or the reality? Am I working at this job because my parents already had this business going on before I was even born? Why did my parents get into that business? Was it all they could see and conceive of at the time? Maybe because they never looked around at other realities? Am I only working at a job I hate because the only advice my father ever gave me was to grit my teeth and get through life? Or am I running from or towards the smothering blanket of my mother's security and self-protection? How much of the currents of my thinking and answering in this exercise are all boiling down to a fearful, unconscious clenching for security? How much of it comes from simply wanting to rebelliously get my own way, to do what I want, to strike out and to be what I want to be without thinking rationally? Is it possible that I could expand my horizon by painfully trying on the realities of other people? Could it be possible that I'm running on ancestral primate circuits and, that are less engaged in evolving and more involved in a selfish, childlike regression? Am I involved in a desire to hide in limited peering holes of preconception? Am I living the unexamined life where I try to evade my painfully curious mind so I can guiltlessly whittle my time away without anything bothering me or without it seeming to bother me? How much of my experience is tainted by my lack of experience? How much is going on above the surface of the water which I am standing underneath, while I ponder entranced at the strange figures and impressions that lie beyond the reach of my cognition and thinking and feeling? Now I ask you, how long can you keep asking these questions in this meditation exercise before you stub the toe of your mind on invisible furniture? How long before you come to the realization that the actions which you have been pursuing habitually your whole life are headed over a cliff of profound pointlessness and dissatisfaction? The clock's ticking, time's coming through. Don't blame old Scorpio here, I'm just the guy that lights the fire under your ass. I'm just the messenger for death, the end of time. I'm just the guy that lets you know at the end that you could have gotten more light. The worst thing that could happen is that you could learn that you should transform after this exercise, you know? You do this, you meditate, you think about what you are and what you could be. And what's the worst that could happen? You gotta transform. You gotta shed some skin. Oh well. At least you know about it now, and you can't blame it all on anyone else but yourself. The fact that your own karma is to blame for your predicament, it may seem crushing at first. But it's less crushing when you start to get used to the other coin of that, the other side of that coin. You know, you're to blame for your predicament, but also you don't have to depend on anything to get out of your predicament. It's just growing pains. You can't blame anyone for your life's troubles, and you can't depend on anyone to resolve your problems which your environment has enclosed you in. This shows you that you have the power to forge your own reality coherently with your heart, with your rational mind, and with your fellow avatars here on planet Earth towards ever greater purposes. You are the arbiter of your own reality. You are the director and the writer of your own movie. Why do you do the things you do? Follow the exercise through several times. Follow it right through to the stem of your unconscious identity. Pluto is the deep understemming karma force which sometimes dissolves in painful memory. It dissolves what we have, and we have painful memories of what we've been, in order to birth a fresh breath of air in life. Roll with the punches, no free lunches. According to astrology, when Pluto's channels open, we find a great vein of power as a particular person in a particular place with a particular identity and occupation. Yet, as Pluto and all the planets and life transits in the sky, that power that we get for that little while turns in new directions, and if one does not swing with the way lines of change, then that person will cripple their life's potential by grasping at illusory memories that have already come and gone. So the whys keep coming. Sorry to hit you over the head with it like this. When did you decide who you were? Did you decide it in high school? In school, you know, the pressure of being a teenager often causes us to force ourselves into narrow identities for the sake of not looking lost. Teenagers can smell that shit from a mile away, you know, and they won't hesitate to make fun of somebody who doesn't look like they have their act together. Whether that is right or not, which of course it is not, is beside the point. Teenagers put pressure on each other to act like they are somebody. Now you've put on a mask since high school in order to have some semblance of an identity, some direction, so that you don't, look like an outcast, or you don't look like you don't know what you're doing. You don't look like a fool. But what's wrong with being a fool, right? In high school, you needed to know what courses you should be taking in school. So you assumed that you were one type of person and just, okay, I'm going to roll with it. Because you had to roll with something. Welcome to the delusion that is the North American education system. And now you're finally an adult with apparent specialization skills and with the time to learn who you really are. But the pressure's on. Mom and dad want to have a label primed and ready to put you under, so that so that they know which college or university to push you through to. And they won't let you live in their basement forever. What can you contribute to society while also enriching yourself, your soul, mind, and body in a balance? Whatever you find now with that full integrity principle will carry you a lot further than just working on one or the other. If you just try to build up your bank account by working at some crappy job that you hate, you'll be missing out on the soul and the mind and that full integration of all those pieces. Whereas, if you only work on the soul, you do the starving artist thing, maybe you won't be as rational as you could be working at some other job that might work. I don't know. I guess you see my point. It's the integration principle of all these things. Are you going to spend this opportunity of your youth, or of whatever age you are? You're always younger than you're gonna be. Are you going to waste this opportunity of life whittling away that annoyingly curious mind of yours? Are you going to go out drinking and get only a sip of ecstatic nectar, which will only cause you to pine for more dreams? Are you going to live miserably in a genetic material encasement simply because you don't understand where to put the key of your action and energy and mind? Why? 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 You can run from Dee Dee, you can run from the questions, but you can't run from the answers. So you'd better put them in perspective and learn to know the difference between which of your instincts are truly necessary and useful, and which are merely a product of obsolete, robotic programming. You know, the black spots of the canvas of the light. Don't ever let your natural, unconscious answers decide the boundaries of what your conscience can question. So, anyway, try this exercise, the one, that we just mentioned, where you question everything in your reality and where you are in your life. Try this exercise a few times whenever you can. Whenever you can give yourself a moment. And don't half-ass it. Try not eating try it in different ways. Try not eating all day and then do the exercise again. They say when you fast, you don't have your body trying to digest, and your mind can go in much different routes than you would usually do. So try not eating all day and then do the exercise again. Try smoking some pot and doing the exercise. Or if you smoke a lot of weed all the time, then, go for a week or so on a cleanse and see if you get different answers in a sober mind. Get drunk and do the meditation. Alter your mind however you can and see if you can get all the angles on these same basic questions. I recommend mushrooms and acid, but that's just me. This is one of the key components of meditation, a sort of backtracking contemplation upon your natural identity, that golden thread that lies beyond all the beads. I usually say meditation is more of an undoing than a doing, because if you're doing something, then it's not letting go, right? But that's, it's sort of more of an Eros Zen meditation, which is different from this mental contemplation style of thing. This is a contemplation exercise, which is, it's equally as crucial. It's jnana. Jnana is contemplation on the question, who am I? Keep a notebook. When you get a flash of insight as to why you have been living the way you do, say in some connection with your parents having divorced in your youth, or a loved one dying, or something equally traumatic, write it down. Write down all the deepest plumbings of psycho, astral, material identity that you can find in yourself. Write down to your very deepest life motivations and your evidence for considering them. And organize all this stuff into weaker and stronger degrees of importance. Weaker and stronger degrees of delusion, and try to decide which ones are incompatible with the needs of your life. Split them up into rational, logical body needs and emotional heart needs. Be honest with yourself. What do you need emotionally? Because, you may have the material thing going for a while, but the material, rational, logical needs of your life are always going to be there. And you won't be able to get at them quite as proficiently if you're not joyful in your life. And emotional satisfaction and security is critical to that enjoyment, or that joyfulness, or that ease, in which it really is rational. The irrational dark side of the moon is technically rational, or to have that feeling of subconscious security. Because if you're happy, then it's much easier for you to go about doing the things that you need to do in your life, so you're not in a slump of depression, you know? It's all about balance. Now compare and contrast all these rational and logical aspects of yourself, your needs, what you consider yourself to be, and then ask yourself, how are all these old neural pathways, these life bits, these bits of your life and your existence, how are they blocking you from expressing and receiving what you feel you need emotionally to be psychologically healthy and whole in the present? Or how are they blocking you from contributing to rational, logical needs that you need to do in your life in order to succeed? Once you've made some progress in cognizing these points, try starting to transform a little bit. Touch the deep end and, ride the edge. Learn the give and take between your biological survival needs and the needs of your ecstatic inner spirit. Touch the edge and peer over the horizon. Then when you've expanded a bit out of that last reality tunnel you were stuck in, get out the notebook and try the exercise again. Gauge your pain. It's bound to be painful when you walk through the abyss because you can't see what you're doing. Are you struggling? We're talking about after you've done this exercise, you've transformed your life, you've seen that you needed to make some changes, now you're making some changes, and you're feeling pain. The question is this pain here, are you struggling here because this new reality is completely incompatible and frighteningly unknown and incomprehensible? Or is this new reality simply strange to you who have been, what you were in the past? Play with the walls of the castle. You will not know how strong the castle walls are unless you test them. If they are not as strong as you think they should be, well, it's a good thing you checked, Destroy the fortress of your life and start again. They're just castles in the sand anyway. And all castles of sand, how does that go? And all castles made of sand must melt into the sea eventually. My boy Jimi Hendrix. So work on this in whatever time you feel you need. Everyone takes to this sort of self-transformation differently. But all the rates are the same, relatively speaking. The blooming of a hyacinth flower, a tiny little flower, it lasts just a few hours in a day. Yet, even though the time is vastly different, from the experience of the yawning spirit, there's no different. The blooming of the hyacinth flower, which lasts just a few hours, is no different than the blooming season of a great oak, which lasts 1,000 years. From the perspective of the plant and the perceiver, the time scale is no different. We all make diamonds within our own scope of reality. The point is truth and yoga, tai chi, the harmony of poles, holistic equilibrium as it has always been. Harmony within ourselves and harmony between each other. The only way to find that truth, that equilibrium, in the case of the self, the equilibrium between one's libido nature, the libidinal impulses, and the reality that exists and through which they express that libido and that heart energy. Whatever that truth means for the individual, the only way to find that truth is to always question authority, do your own studying, and depend on no one but your own inner guidance for the last word and final analysis on things. Scripture is good, books are good. You've always got to go outside of what you are in order to know what you could be And you should always be expanding and looking everywhere that you can to get out of the rut that is the black wall behind your inner white light of your consciousness and your awareness. It's always good to get other perspectives. But you are the last word on what you are. So, an excellent first step in finding one's self-truth and self-realization is gnosis. Gnosis. Look up that word on Google, figure out what it means, and study it in all the depth you can. The only way out of this is going into it, accepting the cosmic game for what it is, and dealing with it, not by escaping it. When you first feel that tight-chested feeling of walking on the edge of an abyss, holding back against the rousing magnetism of your stale old comforts, in the words of a buddy of mine, trying to get away from your past who is holding on to you like a jealous ex-lover. When you feel that feeling, that is how you will know that the process has begun and that you are finally being initiated into the daunting prospect of truly living in the spirit. That light is blinding at first, but it's worth getting to that golden moment of clarity when the darkness is illuminated. The only way you can free yourself at the root is through your own awareness. Good luck, and namaste. Thank you very much for listening.
Hey, you're listening to Pluto's Corona's Cosmic Consciousness audio series, an Al Ginsberg production. We hope you enjoyed.
For more laughs, spirituality, astrology, and philosophical fun, check out my YouTube channel, How to Rock Spirit, where you can find old Ram.
Don't forget about Dog.
At our best in stoned psychedelic discourses ranging from such far-out subjects as mysticism, tantra, and even terrestrial politics to UFOs, energy matter, and the infinite mother mind of cosmic intelligence.
Ginsberg here. Check out my label on Facebook at Rare Records, and check out DUstin's guitar teaching channel, How to Rock a Campfire, if you'd like to see more of us. Also, feel free to send us a message or drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.